Yeah, well, we come in here and look. When I was years ago, when I was an entertainment lawyer during the '70s, I was representing many rock and roll people. One of my clients was Nicky Hopkins, who was at that time was the piano guy for the Stones and for
Oh, wow.
the Beatles. And so I was wearing shirts with moons on it, and I came to work wearing sandals. I did that. I went through that period of time too.
Mushrooms, Judge?
I never liked mushrooms. In fact, when I order pasta, I say no mushrooms.
They're legal in Denver now.
Yes,
So
they
there
are.
you go.
That's an interesting thing that's going on over there. But
I
I
hear
want
you.
to get back right after the break and talk about what we're going to do today.
All right. Cool.
People care about today.
Absolutely. We'll be back.
KCAA. Herb Dodell is a lawyer and a judge for the people. Having served as a Superior Court judge, presiding over more than 9,000 cases, he has witnessed firsthand how complicated and corrupt the legal system can be. His goal is to show how things really work in the legal system so that people can navigate the legal system in the best way for them. Many people often feel marginalized by the legal system and are uninformed about how to proceed when unfortunate circumstances arise in their life. Judge Herb will pull back the curtain, lift the veil so people can truly understand their rights, have access to top legal personnel that they can trust, and have knowledge about how things work so they can make better choices. Judge Herb isn't just knowledgeable. His integrity and spiritual values are truly what make him different. He cares about democratizing access and information for all and desires to turn on the light so the people, you, can benefit. For more information, email the judge at askjudgeherb@gmail.com. That's askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
The more I hear that quasi commercial, we call it the break, the more I like it because this show is about you,
The people. Yes.
And that's exactly what this is really all about. My entire intention is to provide enough, not only information, but guidance and illustrations and a spiritual twist to make your lives better. It's all about free choice. When we were all created for this planet, we were given one of the great gifts, and the gift was called choice. And so when you make the right choice and you do the right thing, you connect to the right kind of energy, and watch what happens. It really does make a big difference.
I agree 100%.
And so the choices, what I really want to do is allow the public to think about what the two options are, or more, and pick what they think makes the most sense for them in their lives, you in your lives. So the illustrations that we've used, not only on the show but in the book, are there for one real purpose. If it happened to somebody else, it could happen to you.
Has.
And the point is that most people who are caught up in the legal system, which is part of the function of the show, is that they don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how much it's going to cost you, what's your exposure, what's your chance of losing, what's going to happen if you lose, what's going to happen if you win. So we're going to talk today about how you pick a lawyer. Before we get to that, and because that's a very, very tough choice. In fact, that's a life-changing choice that you can make. It's like going to the doctors. You were telling me a story about a friend of yours. They missed it. I can tell you a real story. I went to the doctor a number of years ago, and I was complaining like a runny nose and whatever it was. Oh, nothing. Go home. It's fine. Whatever. 4 days later, I was in the hospital with a quadruple bypass.
Really?
Really.
Wow.
Shelley was she didn't believe the doctor. She said, I want you to see a cardiologist. So I said, and I was on the bench in Long Beach. I'll never forget it. I was walking across the parking lot. I wasn't feeling great. And she says, you know what? You're going to a cardiologist. So I did. I didn't go home that night. They put me right in the hospital and said, you know what? We're putting a team together.
Wow.
They said I wouldn't have lasted another 30 days.
Damn, that's...
Doctor missed it.
That's
Doctor
crazy.
missed it.
And if you want to
A
gone
former
back,
former doctor. Actually.
yeah, well, I hope so.
But the bottom line is that we want everybody to listen to the illustrations and the cases. Some of them are very serious. Some of them are just laughable, especially the ones that I was hearing when I was doing restraining order cases. And so the illustrations are there to give you some hope and expectation that will deal with your anxieties of what's going to happen to you.
That's pretty heavy, Judge. I mean, going through that, going to the doctor and you have a runny nose or whatever, and they say everything's okay. Did they give you any medicine or anything? I'm just curious. This is a very interesting story here.
And a nice guy. The doctor was a really nice guy.
Oh, that's great. Real nice.
Very helpful.
Yeah.
Well, the bottom line.
Did he recommend the cardiologist?
No. In fact, I didn't have a cardiologist, and it's one of our very close friends. Had a friend who was a cardiologist near where we live, and they didn't have any appointments. Somehow we squeezed it in. I think somebody told them that I was on the bench or whatever it was, to use the title or whatever. And I got that appointment. And when I went there, the guy took all the tests and everything else. And he said, "You're not going home. You're going across the street."
Wow.
That was that. But, saved my life.
Damn, that is wild.
So,
I'm telling you.
I was never really a specialist in medical malpractice cases. I did a couple of them over the years, but not many. And if there wasn't malpractice, there wouldn't be malpractice cases. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, but it's
everybody
too late.
yells at but no, the doctors oftentimes yell and scream about malpractice and frivolous cases, and there are, and there absolutely are. I even modified my feelings sometimes because my son's a physician, and so now I feel a little bit different about suing doctors. But if there's going to be malpractice, there's malpractice.
Hey, you know what? I mean, I take my brother to the doctor all the time. And he's had 2 nose surgeries because he can't breathe. And guess what? Tomorrow I'm taking him back again because I had to scream at them to make an appointment because he can't breathe. And so they're not perfect. Listen, doctors are humans. They're not gods. So thank God you're here. Your birthday, by the way, your birthday's next Monday.
Yeah.
You're going to be 80 years old.
That's right.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. It's I don't feel 80 actually. I don't feel a day older 78.
That's all? 78?
Actually, I don't even feel that.
Well, that's good. You look good.
And you know what?
You do a good job.
It's because I'm active.
Yeah.
I don't let my mind go. I think about lots of things. I analyze things. I research, and I keep active in doing what I want to do, which is this.
Yeah, and
to me this is it's almost more like a hobby.
It is.
Because I get so much out of these. When people call me, I think I'm going to even use some of the inquiries that I get, because somebody asked me a very interesting question this week. I'm going to try to remember to put it on the show today if I get to it. But the other part of it is the guidelines part. The guidelines part of the show is designed to allow people to at least find a parameter, to see what the paradigm is, so that they can analyze it and make decisions. Remember, it's all about free choice. And many times we are faced with free choice, one of which is the easy way, but not the honorable way. And the other way is the right way. And it's up to us to choose which one of them that we're going to do.
Which is the hard way.
But you know what? You get more out of the hard way than you do out of the easy way.
Oh, okay, Judge. Thank you.
We're not going to go into all of that at the moment. But the fact of the matter is, when we were talking to Roger, I asked him if it was a constitutional crisis. He said no.
Right.
A lot of people will tell you that's absurd. Of course there's a constitutional crisis. I don't make a determination. Somebody down the road is going to do that, and it's going to be in the system, and who knows what judge is going to be hearing it. But you can guarantee, mark my words, this is going to go through the judicial system, probably to the Supreme Court on a number of different issues. It's going to be a fight between those who believe that the Constitution is what it is and it provides for separation of powers and all of those kinds of things, versus the president's right to assert an executive privilege and stretch out the flexibility. It's kind of interesting that the more conservative Republicans generally tended to be more constitutional constructionists.
Right.
And the Democrats was the opposite.
Well, not anymore.
No, that's really flipped around.
Well, listen, the crazy thing is about all of it, when it's all said and done, our system has done a great job. The forefathers did a fantastic job of putting it together, and it's going to survive and thrive no matter what.
I was sorry that Roger didn't answer the one question that I had prepared. And it wasn't a gotcha kind of question.
Which was what?
The
Which one?
question was, in order for there to be an obstruction of justice, there has to be an underlying crime that you're obstructing. There's two schools of thought. There are some very intellectual scholars, really the scholarly people from the Harvards and the Yales, and the really high-end intellectual pillars of the judicial community that say you don't need a crime. All you need to do is obstruct it by telling something that's not true of a material nature.
Like intent, you talking about?
Well, intent is that's a hard one. Intent is hard because you have to go into somebody else's mind. You have to infer a lot when you're talking about did somebody have the intent. But materiality is the key here. In fact, when we had Roger here for the second interview, we had 4 interviews with Roger. When he was here for the second interview, I mentioned that I thought he had a fighting chance, and I still think that way. I don't make any decisions, of course. I don't know enough about the facts, and who knows what judge is going to get. You know, I said this many times, and I think the public should always remember this one. This is very important. If you're going to be involved in the system, in the legal system, ask yourself what the outcome's going to be. And most of the time, people are going to say they don't know. I would say to old clients, who's your judge? I don't know. Well, if you don't know who that's going to be, it could be somebody that's favorable to your types of position, has a history of being in support or against a particular position. He or she has got a reputation for that. And I say the same thing about juries. I had a very interesting situation many years ago, I remember it, that I was trying a particular case downtown Los Angeles involving an insurance issue. And right next door, there was a case that was almost the same as the case I was trying. Different parties, of course, different lawyers and whatever. We were right next door. My jury came back one way, and his jury came back exactly the opposite. Almost the same facts. And so when you go into a system where it's unpredictable like that, that should be the driving force to settlement. That should do it every single time, because you have no clue where this is going to go. So what we try to do is give you guidelines as to what you might reasonably expect. It's not information anymore. Information is nice to have, and you can put the book on your shelf in case you need it at some particular time. But guidelines are very, very different. I hear the noise next door, too.
Oh, please. Oh, let's not get that. You want me to go scream at him? Sorry.
I asked him nicely last week.
Listen, we're on the air right now, Judge. We can do this off the
You
air.
just have to, you know you're not supposed to use swear words on the show. You told me one day they could take your license away.
Yeah, they can. You can't swear on the air. Here, it's FCC
You can't
license.
say
mother effer or anything, or shut the F up or anything like. No, you can't. It is. I'm sorry, it's distracting your show, Judge.
It's not distracting me. I'm used to
being distracted.
Disruptions. No, but I'll tell you one thing that I was very tough on.
What was that?
In my courtroom, I didn't allow any dialogue with people in the audience. You want to talk? Go outside.
Yeah, well, that's disruptive.
And that's why I'd have the bailiff sometimes walk over there and tell them, not here.
Yeah, exactly.
So I never really had real disruptions. But the reality is that these guidelines...
Can you get the bailiff and get him over here to this office next door to us?
A friend of mine wants to be the bailiff on the show.
Get him over here. Let's get him. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, the bailiffs are terrific. I used to love the bailiffs because they're to protect you.
Right, exactly.
And, you know, we have these little buttons and things that they are really on top of it. I told the story before. Maybe I'll tell it just to kind of digress from today's show, some of the discussion. I know I told the story before. I was doing what they call unlawful detainers, landlord-tenant.
Mm-hmm.
I was in chambers, and you used to have to read all the files before you come out. Or maybe it was law in motion. Whatever it was, I was reading, and I read all the papers. And those days, we had a research attorney. We didn't do all the research ourselves. If the public thinks that the judge is back there doing research,
that ain't happening.
Forget about it.
Right.
Forget about it, as they say. Never happens. So I'm reading all the memos from the research attorney, and they make recommendations: deny, approve, grant, whatever it is. So I'm reading and everything. That's why people always think the judges never take the bench on time. That's probably true, But
They never do.
no, there's some federal judges that are right on the minute.
Oh, really? Maybe federal, not in state.
On the minute.
Not in California.
So it would usually take me about a half hour. Everybody was scheduled to be there at 8:30.
Right. You get there at 9. You get on the bench at 9? Come
not
on.
that often. not in Ventura I do, because they made a big deal out of it one time.
I
Said,
bet.
Be on time. I said, okay, I'll be on time. But you sit back and you read all this stuff.
Right.
So I'll tell you the punchline right after the break.
Okay. It's Judge Herb Dodell. If you want to ask him a question, email him askjudgeherb@gmail.com, and his book, From the Trench to the Bench, available on Amazon.com. We'll be back after this, after I go and yell at the people next to us.
NBC Talk Radio, 1050 AM, KCAA.
In his book, From the Trench to the Bench, Judge Herb Dodell demystifies the legal system, including both civil and criminal, the lawyers, the judges, and the process. As a judge, former deputy district attorney, and criminal defense attorney, he knows the legal system. He has the inside information that you need to pick a lawyer, and he's here to give it to you. No matter what you're facing that makes you think you may need a lawyer, Judge Herb will shed valuable light on your situation and reveal your best options and many secrets of how the judicial system actually works. To find out more about how the legal system really works, you can get your copy of Judge Herb Dodell's eye-opening book, From the Trench to the Bench, at Amazon.com.
I was going to say, I guess we're going to do the show Son Producer, since you were down the hall
Well,
yelling
hold
at
on.
the neighbors.
I'm going to shut the door. Well, these people are rude. I mean, they're rude. They just moved in about 3 weeks ago, and they're just so rude. They
Should we
have
do
no-
something extemporaneously, or
Judge, can you do something? I mean, I don't know. Can we do something about
I'm
this?
telling the story about the sitting in chambers reading the files.
Sorry about that.
So you get up, you don't wear the robe in chambers because the damn thing is pretty heavy. You put it on the chair.
Right.
When you go out, you put the robe on. And so we have these buttons to let the court know that you're coming out, so they know to make the little speech, judge is coming out, or whatever they say. And so I finished reading all the stuff. I'm still laughing about it. And I'm getting up and I'm putting on the robe, and I press the button to let them know I'm coming out. The clerk now knows that I'm coming out. And all of a sudden the door swings open and there's 3 sheriffs, hands on the holsters, the whole deal. I pressed the wrong button.
Oh, you pressed the wrong button. Oh, God.
And they were there, I'm talking instantaneously.
Wow.
So you love the bailiffs.
Yeah.
The bailiffs are your friend. They even I was doing night court for a while, which was kind of nice. I thought it was kind of fun.
Night court?
Night court.
What time does night court start?
Started like about 7 o'clock or something, and it went to like 9.
Oh, that's it? Just a couple hours?
Yeah, I don't exactly remember when I got there, but the bailiff would walk me out to the car when I was going home at night to the parking lot.
Yeah.
Waited till I got in the car and got the motor going and left. And that's what they do. They take really good care of you. Those bailiffs are
Really?
oh yeah, they're really quality people.
That's awesome.
So anyway, that was the story. I was talking about the difference between the question I asked Roger, which he didn't answer, of course,
What was that?
whether or not in order to be an obstruction of justice, there has to be an underlying crime.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying that there's really 2 schools of thought. One says you don't, and the other says you do.
Right.
I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
You know who's going to know the answer?
Who?
Some district court judge somewhere is going to decide
Yeah.
whether he or she got up on the right side of the morning and they're going to feel one way or say it the other. I mean, it's totally unpredictable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what our system is about.
Well, that's why you say to take a plea deal
I always
or to settle out of court.
no, think about your options.
Well,
Every single time. The first thing you should do if you get involved in the legal system is take a deep breath or more. Breathe out.
breathe in.
Breathe in. Hold your breath. Like I just went to the cardiologist a while ago. Hold your breath. I said, how long can I have to hold it? They think you can.
How's your
swim
heart doing,
before-
by the way? Is it okay?
Yes, actually, I am.
That's good for 80,
I feel
huh?
pretty good.
That's cool.
So the bottom line really is that you don't know where you're going, so you take a deep breath and you think about your options.
Yeah.
And if your option is to do it over an ego issue,
Right.
because you want to get revenge, or because you're angry, or because you're going to show somebody that you're right, you're heading in the wrong direction. You absolutely are. That doesn't mean that you can feel that way if you're getting sued. Sometimes you get sued and you say, why am I being sued? I didn't do anything wrong. Now what am I going to do? And we're going to talk about the different kinds of arrangements you can make with lawyers. When you get sued, your choices are much more limited.
Yeah.
Extremely limited, especially if you haven't got any insurance. If you have insurance, generally speaking, the insurance company will provide you with a defense if it's covered. But a lot of insurance companies will dig through the policy and say, oh, gee, it's too bad it was on a Thursday because you're not insured for things that happen on Thursday. Absurd example, but they will always find, I shouldn't say always, they will find reasons not to provide you with a defense. In fact, the Essex case, which is in the book,
Yeah.
which went to the Supreme Court here in California,
Yeah.
it took me 13 years to do that case, from the time I got the case to the time the Supreme Court ruled. And I argued that case before the Supreme Court.
Mhm.
The question was, does an insurance company have a duty to defend under certain circumstances? That was one of the issues in the case.
Right.
And that's a very great privilege that you get when you buy the policy. It's not so much whether they'll pay at the end of the day, it's whether or not they'll provide you with a defense. In the Essex case, they didn't provide a defense to the defendant, and he lost $1,350,000 because he didn't have a lawyer. Well, he had a lawyer, but the lawyer, nice guy, it was his first case. He had been a truck driver.
Is every
He just
lawyer a
passed
nice
it.
guy, Judge?
No.
Okay.
Oh, you can talk. But on the other hand, I want to mention, and I generally don't mention names, but we have a judge in Ventura whose name is Ken Killigrew. He's wonderful. He has the most wonderful personal demeanor, friendly, neutral, courteous about everything. He just became the presiding judge. That's why I mentioned it again. They made a great choice with this guy. And I think he represents the best of it.
Is it civil or criminal?
Well, he's now the presiding judge
Over the whole court
over
system?
the whole in Ventura County.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
But what a nice man he is. I think I'll tell him to listen to the show.
Have him on the show.
I've thought about that. I've got a couple of judge friends who said they would do it.
Why not get some
So
judge
I'm,
friends of yours
I'm,
on here?
I'm thinking about doing that. I was thinking today, I sent an email to a judge friend of mine last night. It came back. It got kicked back. So I'm thinking I better call him at home and get his email address. And you know what I was sending him? I was sending him a note to listen to the Roger Stone show. That's what I was sending him.
Did you send it to your friend, the senator?
I did. I haven't heard back.
He was actually on CNN a couple weeks ago. I saw
He's
him.
on a lot.
Yeah, I seen
He's
him.
on a lot. You know, it's working its way through the system, I suspect.
Yeah, right.
I was going to send a special one to Myrna and wish her Happy Mother's Day, but I decided not to do that. I want to push the envelope.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, the guidelines part of our show is destined and designed to help the people. That's a real help.
Yeah.
It's knowing what to do when you're confronted with a system that you have no familiarity with. Small claims is one thing, restraining orders is another thing. Major lawsuits are different. There's antitrust. There's all kinds of things that most of the public has no clue about,
Right.
except when you read about it. And who you're reading about it from, many times it comes from an unreliable source, somebody with an opinion that may not be accurate. So the purpose of this show, other than giving information, which is helpful and makes you better at a cocktail party, and giving you illustrations in real cases to see how it really works. But the guidelines part is practicality. So today, we're going to talk about practicality. I try to make it the practice every week to give information enough, or guidelines enough, that the person who's listening to the show can hang up and say, oh, that was interesting. Or, oh, I've just been faced with that situation. Oh, maybe I should take a look at this or do that. And that's the purpose of the whole thing, is to be for the people. And that's what I'm going to talk about now,
Okay,
is picking a lawyer.
Picking a lawyer.
Picking a lawyer. And there's lots of ways that goes on. In fact, I just started writing my second book, which is how the law business really works from the inside, how the lawyers make money.
Oh, please.
Oh, you know,
It's called billing.
I know. Billable hours.
Billable hours.
That's the mantra. Billable hours.
That's right.
Yeah, but you know, sometimes you can't do billable hours because you can't afford to pay the billable hours. So personal injury cases, your lawyer is usually working on a contingency. What does a contingency mean? It means you give the lawyer a percentage of the recovery, whatever there is.
You don't pay them anything up front normally.
Pay them nothing up front. And in fact, the lawyers generally are promoting the idea that they're going to pay all the costs.
Right.
If you get into a serious case, it could cost you $50,000, $100,000 for experts. Cases are decided most of the time, believe it or not, most of the time on the testimony of expert witnesses. So there's a cottage industry out there. There are the experts that testify for the plaintiffs, and the experts who testify for the defendants.
God,
There's a guy. There was a doctor.
what a scam.
There was a doctor. It turned out he was a fraternity brother of mine. I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
Basically, he made his whole living off of working for the insurance companies. People could limp in there, and he'd say everything was fine. There was nobody was ever hurt. Or if they were hurt 30 years ago. In another, there was always a reason.
That was the insurance expert.
That's the defense expert.
Right, the insurance.
The plaintiff guy our gal comes in and says, "Oh, it's a hair lip. Oh, that was caused by the." Did I tell you the story? I should tell the story. It's a great story. A guy walks into my office. This is a long time ago, and he was in an automobile accident. And the insurance company was lowballing, meaning they weren't offering him very much. And so we start to talk, and it turns out that he was previously was a she, he was a he, and he was now a she. When he came,
so they're transgender.
Yeah, he came in. He was now a woman.
Okay.
And I pitched the insurance company on the idea that this accident triggered a latent. Desire to be a woman.
What?
And I did, and I sold it.
How long ago was this?
Oh, I see. My office was on Sunset Boulevard. It's got to be 35 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say that probably wouldn't fly now, but
I don't know, but I scared him enough to pay the policy limits.
Wow. That's great.
But you got to be imaginative in this business. You really have to do that. So the plaintiff's lawyers are working on a percentage. So you say, so that's great. If I have nothing to lose or nothing to risk, why not?
Yeah.
That's why you see these people with the big billboards. I got $2 million for Harry.
Please.
You know, it's all
BS.
That guy got lucky.
Yeah.
Somebody showed up one day with a great case. Didn't make him a great lawyer, made him a great case.
Yeah.
And you don't need too many of those if you're a plaintiff's lawyer, and you're getting 40% of the recovery. But the problem really is, and nobody ever really thinks it out, because people are not in the business, the law business. What really happens with contingency firms, and I say firms, many of them are referred to as mills, because they've got hundreds of these cases. What kind of attention do you think you're getting from the partner there?
Zero.
You get the handshake when you come in, and that's probably the last time you see him or her.
Even that.
They're all being done by clerks.
Yeah.
Paralegals, clerks, whatever it is. But it creates big overhead. I really remember walking up to one of these personal injury lawyer friends of mine, and he had like 2 floors in a major high-rise. And I said to him, John, I said, this is fantastic what you got. He says, it's costing me $2 million a month. He's got to do what?
$2 million a month?
$2 million a month. He says, you know what I got to settle cases. And so the insurance companies, they know that. They know you got the big overhead, and you got all the staff, and you got all of this, and the experts, and even though the doctor's taking on what's called liens, the plaintiff's doctor doesn't get paid till the case is over, which certainly affects their credibility in my mind, because if the doctor's got to win to get paid, Doesn't it affect the credibility of the testimony? Sure it does. So a lot of these mills will turn these cases over quick. The quicker the better, because when you turn them over quick, less money is being spent on it,
Less time spent.
less expert fees, and it's a turnover for cash flow purposes. So they'll take a case that may be worth $25,000, and the carriers, the insurance companies, will say, "I'll give you 15." They'll take it. They shorted you because they needed to settle the case, and the insurance companies know that, so they come back with lowball offers and force you into positions where you have to litigate it. So that's contingency cases for the plaintiff. We're going to talk about the defense and other kinds of cases right after the break.
NBC Talk Radio, 1050 AM, KCAA.
Did you ever meet a lawyer that was for the people? Someone who had the best interests of the people at heart? Herb Dodell has been a lawyer for more than 50 years and has been a Superior Court judge for 9 years, having presided over more than 9,000 cases. In this show, he will reveal the secrets of how things really work in the legal system, so you can maximize your position and benefit most when you're in trouble and need someone on your side to simplify the process for you. For more information, email the judge at askjudgeherb@gmail.com. That's askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
Okay, now the next question is, are these people really competent? When you see the billboards on the back of the bus and the side of the bus and at the bus stop and whatever, some of them probably are, but some of them are not, because they don't really have anything to do with the practice. They just bring them in. Now, if you look at TV after 10 o'clock at night, generally, and not necessarily on the big networks, but now you see all these ads for mesothelioma. I mean, did you have a hernia surgery? Did you use talcum powder or whatever it is? These people are advertising. They hire actors and they advertise. If you look at the small print, which of course you need to go to the ophthalmologist to be able to do that, you can't read the small print.
Right.
It's basically they're looking for the business and they refer it. They refer it to some other firm someplace. So you may get somebody in Casper, Wyoming, who's been paying for all this advertising. And if you've got a case and you live in Atlanta, they got a list of people in Atlanta that they refer to. Why would they do that? Why do you think they would do that? The answer is they get a referral fee.
Oh, wow. So there's a kickback there, too.
Well, it used to be you couldn't do that. That was against the law. The Jacoby and Myers case came down, it's been a while now, that said you can advertise, and the bar requirements, all you have to do is basically have some tangential interest in the outcome, and you can get a referral fee. So the referral fee is generally ranges 25% of whatever the fee is that the lawyer that brought the case in.
Right.
And so if you settle a case for $10,000, somebody settles a case for $10,000, you, the referring lawyer, are getting 25% of 40%, which is $1,000 for just referring the case in. So there's people out there. The old term used to be called ambulance chasers. They're out there just hustling up the business. You just get it in the door and get it out the door as quick as you can.
Right.
Now, the second way of hiring a lawyer, and I'm going to talk to you about some of the more practical views about it, is the hourly lawyer. Now, the hourly lawyer wants to keep the case open as long as they can, opposite of the contingency lawyer. The hourly lawyer wants to bill, and bill some more. You know, we've told the story so many times that I probably don't want to repeat it again about the guy that's 36 years old. He dies. He's a lawyer. Says to St. Peter, "I'm too young to die." And Peter says, "Not according to your billing records." And the reality is that there are lawyers that will create work. They'll make work. And they'll design motions that have very little chance of winning because they'll get billable hours. Or they'll have 5 lawyers working on a case that you don't need 5 lawyers working on a case.
So how do you pick an honest lawyer?
The best way to do it is viscerally. I mean, you go in and you sit down and you talk You want to know who's the person who's going to really handle my case. You may have shaken hands with the boss that you're not going to see very often. Ask him, who's going to handle my case? Oh, Mary's going to handle it. Oh, really? What's her legal education? Oh, Mary just graduated from the correspondence course in where Michael Cohen went.
And Kim Kardashian.
Oh, well, whatever. And the reality is, you get a junior person, and let's say they're charging you $250 an hour for that person. They're not paying that person $250 an hour. They're paying him a far less amount, and they require these lawyers, what they call the associates, who are there fighting to become a partner with all of the things they think they're going to get with that. And all they want to do is bill hours. They chain them to the desk. You can't even go to the bathroom. These people are always looking for the extra quarter of an hour. Every motion is going to bring more. And I've talked about what they call summary judgment motions and demurrers. And maybe one day in the show we'll explain with detail what those motions are.
What about asking the lawyer, like you have a certain case, whatever it is, whether it's a criminal case or a civil case. Mostly civil cases, they do a lot of contingency, but I'm talking more criminal. You get busted for a DUI or drug possession or whatever, just trespassing, something stupid. Can't you go and say, hey, how much is this going to cost me?
You do. And why?
Shouldn't you?
What are you going to? You absolutely should.
Okay.
You should ask a lot of questions. In fact, in the book, I have a whole chapter on it, on how to pick a lawyer, and what questions should you ask that lawyer. In a contingency case, you want to know, is that lawyer prepared to put up $25,000 for a forensic accountant? That lawyer says, well, we don't need to, then you need to find the door, because that lawyer is going to spend as little as possible to get as much as they can, as quick as they can. The defense guys, they don't care. It's like we had our guest, one of the early shows with Olivia Bissell, who was an insurance defense lawyer for many, many years. She and I fought regularly until she found God, and now is on the plaintiff's side. And the reality is, she said, we used to have a phrase, you can't bill a closed file. And the bottom line is they kept those things open as long as they can. And that's why you hear people say,
terrible.
we're going to settle a case on the courthouse steps. That's because they ran out of billable time, except for the trial. And the risk to going to trial is you could lose.
But let me ask a question. Let's say a lawyer says, okay, it's going to cost you, just throw out a figure, $10,000 for this case.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, can we sign a contract with that?
You do.
Okay, you sign a contract. Then all of a sudden he goes, well, it's costing me a little bit more. It's going to cost you $20,000. Now, does the lawyer have to honor that contract of $10,000, or what happens?
Depends on the language of the contract.
Well,
that's called a flat fee contract.
That's what I'm saying.
They end up providing you with an option. They say, we can withdraw from the case
after $10,000.
Well, legally, you can't get people to work for free.
Well, if you sign a contract, isn't that legal?
Yes,
isn't that legal and binding?
It certainly is. And you know what that lawyer is going to do for you the rest of the way?
Nothing.
Going to do as little as possible because they're not getting paid for it. So
isn't that unethical?
Oh, I didn't want to be.
Can't you get disbarred for something like that?
Depends on the conduct.
That's what I'm saying.
You don't get disbarred that easily. What happens
I know
is
that.
The process with the state bar is they have their own system, a criminal system.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not a criminal system, it's their own licensing system. You have a hearing and everything else. The first round, usually, if you have no prior history, is maybe a suspension or a reproval. You have to do something more than once and do something meaningfully bad in order to get disbarred. And not a lot of lawyers get disbarred. But the fact of the matter is, this is a nasty, dirty business.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be so cynical, but over the years since I've seen it, look, when I was deciding cases in terms of, in restraining order cases, the prevailing party is entitled to attorney's fees. So I remember one case where I had denied the restraining order, which meant that the respondent was entitled to attorney's fees. They both had lawyers. They both submitted. He submitted this list of all the attorney's fees they were claiming, and it was like about 20 some odd thousand, as I remember. And I'm looking at this bill because that's what I'm doing. I'm reading their bills and the things that they were doing that they were charging for. And I'm shaking my head. I'm saying there's no way this law firm spent 6 hours doing this work. This work could be done in 2 hours. And so we have to put a pencil to it and go through it. But lawyers will take advantage whenever humanly possible. I'm not saying all lawyers. I don't want to be considered a little off the crazy side. There are some very, very good, hardworking, honest, legitimate lawyers who won't do that extra work for nothing, who won't create work, who won't make motions that they can't win because it's the wrong thing to do. And at the end of the day, when you do the wrong thing, what happens to you? You look around the people that are now going to jail and are suffering and going through difficult times in lives, and I'll bet you if you look back into their background in this lifetime, you'll see that they did some not so nice things. They're paying it back. You always pay it back. That's the rule of the universe. It's called cause and effect. If you do not so nice things happen to you at the end of the day. And the lawyers take advantage, many take advantage of the system by doing things that are not so honorable. It's a terrible thing to say. And then again, everything's part of a negotiation. Just like you asked, if you want to know what it's going to cost you, and you want to know who's going to do the work, and you want to know what they're going to do for you, you want to know what the expectations are, you want to know how long they think it's going to take, even though that's a difficult question to answer many times because you don't know what you're facing. And you're going to want to know, are they there for this or for that? And what do they think of your witnesses? You want to make that first interview with that lawyer as long as you need to have it until you walk out the door with a visceral sense, I like that lawyer.
Yeah, it's just like I think,
don't like that lawyer.
Going to the dentist or a doctor or something like that, you got to, go through a litany of them to see who's the right fit, for you.
Every time. And, you shouldn't really understate it. But a lot of times it's a gut feeling.
Yeah.
You walk in and you talk to somebody and you say, you know what? They keep looking at their watch. They're looking at the watch for you now. You can imagine what they're going to be doing later on. And so you kind of evaluate what that lawyer is going to do for you if you hire him or her. Now, I wrote a whole bunch about DUI cases. Do you need a lawyer in every DUI case?
No.
Absolutely not. But the lawyers will promote and advertise and say, friends don't let other friends plead guilty, all of that stuff.
Right.
If you blow a 2-0 and you're weaving all across the street, I don't care if you got Clarence Darrow. For you young people, Clarence Darrow was a great lawyer in the 40s.
Johnny Cochran.
Who I knew very well, by the way.
He was a good guy.
I was a friend of Johnny's.
Yeah.
And in fact, I once asked him how come he went into the district attorney's office. He was the DA for a while.
I know he was.
I said, well, why are you doing that? He says, I have political ambitions.
Yeah.
That's why he did it. He was a very, very nice man, by the way.
He was.
And he was quick. He died quick.
Yes.
Sweet guy.
He was.
And the reality is there are some very, very good lawyers out there that are hardworking. And there are some, the high-end guys and gals belong to this organization that I'm a member of called the BOTA, American Board of Trial Advocates. It's the great, great lawyers are in that organization. Many of them go on the bench. Many of them have had big $100 million cases. They take it all the way to the end. They fight real hard. It was like the Aaron Brockovich case. They believed in the cause. They took a real gamble with that case. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, I do. I actually have met Aaron Brockovich.
She lives not too far from where we live. I see her every now and again.
Yeah, I've met her, and I actually did something with her. She came on my show years ago. So.
Well, I was once of counsel for a firm who was involved in the Brockovich case, and Tom financed it. He came along. He liked it. He knew Ed Masry, who was the lawyer for the plaintiffs, and he financed it. And I think he even tried the case, or he certainly handled the settlement for it. A very high-end lawyer.
Yeah.
Big stuff. So, is that it for today?
Yeah, Judge.
But I want to close with something.
Go ahead. You got a minute.
The answer is, I want to put a spiritual twist on all these cases, on all of these shows. So I want to say to the public, how do you do well in the legal system? The answer is, do the right thing and watch for the results. It's like Dr. Seuss said, do the right thing, let the sun shine in, let the light come in, and as he said, watch the places that you will go.
And green eggs and ham.
I didn't get to that part. But the fact of the matter is, it really is about doing the right thing.
It is.
And hopefully, when
Karma.
you get caught up in the system and those choices come your way, do the honest thing, do the right thing, and the results will come just because that's the way it works.
Amen.
So we'll see you next week.
Well, in a couple weeks.
Maybe Monday.
Well, you're gonna come in for your birthday?
Who
All right.
knows?
Do
Who
whatever you
knows?
want to do. I don't care.
Maybe it's a present.
All right, cool. Whatever you want to do, Judge. I'll be here. You know.
Okay.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and